So, all right, before you cut my ass, I realized that the last problem on each page I didn't see, so I'm doing it now. So this question was to find the x and y intercepts. So just like before, we're going to do the x-intercept is where y equals 0. So wherever we see a y, we're plugging 0 in. So 0 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 3. So we have to find out what makes this true. So if I take any number and plug it in, it has to give me 0. So the only number that makes sense is -3. So the absolute value of -3 plus 3 is equal to 0. So x is equal to -3. Um, yeah. So that is the x-intercept. That's the x-intercept. So for the y-intercept, what we do is set x equal to 0. So here I have y is equal to the absolute value of 0 plus 3. So the answer for this is y is equal to the absolute value of 3. And so y has to equal 3. Okay. So now I have my two intercepts. So what I want to do is I want to sketch it. I know that my absolute value graph is the shape of the letter V. You can do an x and y table if you want, but what's easier is, so the x-intercept is at -3, -1, -2, -3. There's going to be a dot there. The y-intercept is at +3, 1, 2, 3. There's going to be a dot there. So I see that it's going to have to look something like this. So this is going to be where the line is, and then the other part is going to go like that. So it's going to extend in both directions. Um, you should probably just do an XY chart just to make sure, but know that the absolute value is the shape of the letter V. The square root is going to be like a parabola, part of a parabola, and then these are just lines, so it's going to be a straight line. Okay, moving on. I told you I skipped the bottom part, so let me just extend the page. Didn't see it. So here what I'm doing is I'm looking for the domain. So domain is what the x can be. So here I notice that x can be anything except where this is equal to 0, because I can't have the denominator equal 0. So I have x minus 2 equals 0, add 2 to both sides and I get x is equal to 2. So that means that the domain for this can be all real numbers. The symbol for real is that. All real numbers except for +2. So there's the domain. For this one right here, it's very similar. So I want to do x squared minus 4 equals 0, because again, the denominator can't be 0. Add 4 to both sides, so x squared is equal to 4. Take the square root of both sides, and I get x is equal to positive and -2, because the square root of 4 is not just +2, it's also -2. So the domain for this is all real numbers except for positive and -2. There's the domain. Sorry for getting sloppy. This one here. So what was I doing? I was looking for the distance and the midpoint. Okay, so same concept except now with fractions. So you told me to do a fraction problem. This one has whole numbers. It's very similar to everything else. This one was the one with 30. Oh, this is determine the equation of the line through the points. So same concept. We have y is equal to mx plus b. And so to find our m, the formula for m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But before we can do that, let's label points. x1, y1, x2, y2. And we're going to go ahead and take it and plug it into this. So we have x2. So we have 1/2 minus a -1/2 on the y2. So y is equal to mx plus b. Sorry, let me do that again. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so y2 minus y1. 1 minus negative 1 is on top. My bad, I switched it. And then the x's are on the bottom, so I have 1/2 minus negative 1/2. So be careful not to do what I just did. Y 1 minus negative 1, keep change, so that's going to give me 2. And same thing here, keep change, so a half plus a half is a whole. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So my slope is 2. So I have y is equal to 2x plus b. Our b, so both points are a little bit harder because there's fractions, but it's the same concept, right? So I rather just go ahead and use this point. So our y is 1, our x is 1/2. So 2 times 1/2 plus b, and I want to find out what that is equal to. So half of 2 is 1, so 1 plus b is equal to 1. Subtract 1 from both sides and I get b is equal to 0. So my whole equation is just y is equal to 1, y is equal to our slope plus b. So our slope we found out was 2, so we were going to do 2x, and our b-intercept is 0. So y is equal to 2x is going to be our slope. And let's make sure that that's true. Negative 1/2 times 2 is negative 1, and half times 2 is positive 1. So our rule works. Okay, moving on. This one, so I didn't even go through this. So you seem to know this when I asked you this. So write an equation of a horizontal line passing. Horizontal line is where y equals 0, and vertical line is where x is equal to a number. I just say like vertical line x equals 0, 1, 2, 3. Horizontal line 0, 1, 2, 3. Same thing with negatives. Okay, so it's very simple to do. So you have, this is your x. So you have x is equal to negative 6 is going to be what your vertical line is going to look like. Here is our y, so y is equal to positive 3 is what our horizontal line is going to look like. So there's going to be a horizontal line at y equals 3, and there's going to be a vertical line at x equals negative 6. So there's our two answers. These are very similar. I just put answers down. Okay, moving on to the new things. So determine the slope and the y-intercept. So the point of this is to get this into y equals mx plus b form. So to do that, I have 3x plus 4y is equal to 5. The goal is to get the y by itself, so I want to subtract 3x from both sides. So I get 4y is equal to negative 3x plus 5. And I want to keep it in that mx plus b form. Divide both sides by 4. Divide by 4, divide by 4. And I get y is equal to negative 3 over 4x plus 5 over 4. Determine the slope. So my slope is, I'm going to go ahead and just box my slope. So m is equal to negative 3/4. And my y-intercept, which is my b, is going to be positive 5 over 4. So that's my two answers. So m is equal to negative 3 over 4, my slope, and your b, which is your y-intercept, is equal to 5/4. There's the answer for the for number 25. This one very similar. I'm going to get the y by itself, so I'm going to add 5y to both sides. So these cancel out, so I'm left with 2x plus 3 is equal to 5y. I don't want 5y, I just want y. So divide everything by 5. Cancels out, so y is equal to 2 over 5x plus 3 over 5. So my m, which is my slope, is 2 over 5 because it's in front of the x. And my b, which is shown by itself, is 3 over 5. All right, so here I need to put this into y equals mx plus b form. So I have y is equal to, I want to add 4 to both sides. Y is equal to 4. So if I have to write it in mx plus b form, it's 0x plus, and my b is going to equal 4. So my slope is 0 and my intercept is 4. Over here, similar concept. I don't even have a y. So my slope is going to be 0. No, x equals -5. So x equals -5, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. X equals -5 is going to be a line that looks like this. And anytime you have a line that looks like this, the slope is undefined. So M is undefined, and there is no y-intercept. So there is no B. Okay. Do I need to go back to this one and show you that? No, I think we're okay. Ask me if you have any questions. Over here, we have to get the y by itself. So we're going to subtract 4y from both sides. So minus 4y, minus 4y. So I have negative 4y is equal to 3x plus 2. I want to get rid of that negative 4, so divide both sides by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. So I have negative 3 over 4x. 2 over 4 reduces to a half. Positive divided by negative is negative, is equal to, these cancel out, is equal to y. So my m is negative 3 over 4, and my b is negative 1/2. Okay, here we're going to get the y by itself, so subtract 3. So x minus 3 is equal to negative 1/2 y. To get rid of that negative 1/2, I'd multiply by negative 2. Negative times negative is positive, so this will cancel out. This will cancel out somewhere, somehow. Okay. Let me just grab the pen. Okay, perfect. It actually works out because I want to do it in a different color anyway. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 2. Multiply by negative 2. So here I have to do distributive properties. So I get negative 2x. Negative times negative is a positive, plus 6. So my m is equal to negative 2, and my b is equal to positive 6. All right, almost done. So determine f of g of x and g of f of x. So f of g of x means that I'm taking g of x and plugging it into f. So I'm taking g of x and I'm plugging it into f, wherever I see an x. So that means that this new x becomes x plus 2. So this is going to be x plus 2, and then I'm subtracting 1 from it. So x plus 2 minus 1 is the same thing as x plus 1. So f of g of x is equal to x plus 1. Done. For g of f of x, I'm going the opposite way. So what I mean by that is now I'm taking f of x and I'm plugging it into g. So I'm taking f of x and I'm plugging it into g, wherever I see that x. So my new x is x minus 1. So I'm doing x minus 1. And then I'm adding 2 to it. Basically here I'm just combining like terms. So x plus 1 is what g of f of x is. This just happens to be the same thing, forward, backward. Might not always happen like that. Okay, so here's same concept. We're doing f of g of x. So I'm going to take g of x and plug it into f. So I'm taking g of x and plugging it in here. So that's equal to the square root. My new x is x plus 2. So I have x plus 2, and I'm adding 1 to that, so plus 1. And then I'm going to combine like terms, so x plus 3 is going to be what f of g of x is equal to. G of f of x, like you know I'm going to say, is now we're going to go backwards. So we are taking f of x and we're plugging it into g. So we're taking all of this and we're plugging it into g. So my new x is going to be the square root of x plus 1, and then I'm adding 2 to it. notice that the plus 2 stays on the outside. So final answer is square root of x plus 1, and then it's plus 2. You can close that little thingy. All right, here. So I'm doing f of g of x first. So I'm taking g of x and I'm plugging it into f. So I'm plugging it into that. So this is going to equal, so there's a 1 over, my new x is going to be all of this. So it's going to be 1 over x minus 1, and then I'm going to add 1 to that. And then I want to see if I can like simplify this any further. So I see that I have 1 over, this is like 1 over 1. So I want to get a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be x minus 1. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top, x minus 1. So I have the 1 on top from here. 1 times anything is going to give me itself. So I'm going to have an x minus 1 over x minus 1. And to that, I'm adding 1 over x minus 1. So I know that if I have the same denominator, I just leave the denominator. So it's x minus 1. 1 plus x minus 1. The 1's cancel out, and I'm left with an x, and there's a 1 on top. This is that rainbow method that I used to call it. So if this is 1, it's the same thing as 1 over 1. So I'm multiplying these, multiplying these. Bigger rainbow goes on the top. So 1 times anything is itself. So x minus 1 is what goes on top. 1 times x is x. That goes on the bottom. So that's what f of g of x is. Damn, that was a long problem. If you don't get it like that, then do keep change. So 1 divided by x over x minus 1. Keep change flip. So it's going to be 1 times, and then this gets flipped. So that's going to be x minus 1 over x. That's times. 1 times anything is itself. So that's also going to give you that answer. However you do it, you still get the same answer. Okay. We're going to need more room for g of f of x. So I'm going to leave this alone for right now. So I'm doing, let me do this in a different color. So now for the second one, for g of f of x, g of f of x, I'm taking f of x and I'm plugging it into g. So I see something similar. So it's going to be 1 over, my new x is going to be this whole crap. So it's 1 over x plus 1, and then I'm subtracting 1 from it. So same thing, I need to get a common denominator. So I see there's 1 over 1. So I'm going to multiply this by x plus 1. Multiply this by x plus 1. So my denominator right here is going to be x plus 1. So it's 1 minus, that's a negative sign. I want to distribute that. So negative 1 times x is negative x. And negative times a positive is a negative 1. 1 minus 1 cancels out, and I'm left with a negative x on the top and an x plus 1 on the bottom. So this whole thing is the denominator. This whole thing is under a 1. Under a 1. Okay. Maybe that last part was a little confusing. So maybe I should do that again. Okay. So this is what we had, right? Minus 1. So I should have written it over here. 1 over. This is where you put it over 1. X plus 1. X plus 1. So over here we have this whole thing, which is 1 over x plus 1 minus, this gets distributed. So that's going to be negative x, negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1 over x plus 1. So now I'm going to combine like terms. So the numerator still stays as a 1. The denominator now, I'm going to combine this. So same denominator, so I leave it. And then I have 1 minus x minus 1. The 1's cancel out, and I'm left with negative x. Same thing that I did up there, I'm going to do again. So this is 1 over 1, bigger rainbow, smaller rainbow, right? So bigger rainbow goes on the top. So 1 times x plus 1 is x plus 1. And then 1 times negative x is negative x. So this is what g of f of x is equal to. All right, last one. Is there any crap on the bottom? No, okay. All right, last one. So finding inverses, right? So inverses, again, the concept is take x and y and switch them, right? So here I don't have a y, but I have f of x, which is y. So y is equal to 2x plus 3. So this is the original problem. We didn't do this part yet with the switching. So we're going to go ahead now and switch. So y becomes a x. This is 2x, so that becomes 2y, and that's plus 3. The goal is to get the y by itself, so we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So x minus 3 is equal to 2y. Divide both sides by 2. Cancels out, so I get y is equal to 1 half x minus 3 over 2. There's a lot of different ways to write that, but that's what we have, 1 over 2. Over here, same concept, right? So this is now, I'm going to do in black. So f of x is the same thing as y, is equal to 3x minus 4. I haven't done the switch yet, so now when I switch, I get x is equal to 3y minus 4. Sorry for the sloppy handwriting. We have to get the y by itself, so add 4. So x plus 4 is equal to 3y. Divide both sides by 3. So I get y is equal to, that's a y, is equal to x over 3 plus 4 over 3. If he's like, no, you can't write it like that, there's an imaginary 1. So y is equal to 1 over 3x plus 4 over 3. Or that. Okay. We're rolling. So this is y is equal to 3 minus 2x. Now we're going to do the switch. So x is equal to 3 minus 2y. We want to get this y by itself. So I would add 2y to both sides. So 2y plus x is equal to 3. Subtract x. So I get 2y is equal to negative x plus 3, or 3 minus x, same thing. Divide both sides by 2. So I get y is equal to negative 1 half x plus 3 over 2. It doesn't tell me how to write it, like whether to put it in mx plus b form. So you could have left it as y is equal to negative x over 2 plus 3 over 2. That's fine. All right. That's you texting me. What you're writing. Okay. So this one, we're doing good. So here we have f of x, which is y, is equal to 1 half x plus 1. So we're now going to do the switch. So we get x is equal to 1 half y plus 1. I get the y by itself, so subtract 1 from both sides. So x minus 1 is equal to 1 half y. To get the y by itself, I want to multiply by 2. Don't forget to do distributive property. So 2x minus 2 is equal to, this cancels out, is equal to y. Boom. All right, on a roll. Here, so f of x is y is equal to 1/3 x minus 5. Now I'm going to do the switch. So x is equal to 1/3 y minus 5. I'm going to go ahead and add 5 to both sides. Ooh, there's more. So we have x plus 5 is equal to 1/3 y. To get the y by itself, I'm going to multiply by 3 because it's like divide by 3. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 3. These cancel out, so I'm left with y is equal to 3x plus 15. And again, because I have to do distributive property. All right. So y is equal to 2 minus 1 over 5x. Switch, x is equal to 2 minus 1 over 5y. To get the y by itself, I'm going to subtract 2. So x minus 2 is equal to negative 1 over 5y. To get the y by itself, I want to multiply by negative 5. Multiply by negative 5. So these cancel out. I'm left with y is equal to negative 5x plus 10. There you go. Oh, now almost done. All right. So y equals x cubed plus 1. Switch, and it becomes x is equal to y cubed plus 1. And then I want to get the y by itself, so subtract 1 from both sides. The opposite of cube is cube root. So we're going to cube root both sides. Cube root both sides. X minus 1. So the cube and the cube root cancel each other out. So we're left with y is equal to the cube root of x minus 1. This one. So f of x is y. 1 over x plus 1. So I didn't do any switches yet. So now here I get x is equal to 1 over y plus 1. So to get this is divided by y plus 1. To get rid of that, I want to multiply by y plus 1 on both sides. This cancels out, so I'm left with something equals 1. I need to remember to distribute, so x times y is xy. 1 times x is x. The goal is to get this y by itself, right? So I want to subtract x from both sides. So I get xy is equal to 1 minus x. To get the y by itself, I want to divide both sides by x. So I get y is equal to 1 minus x over x. That's one answer, or you could have y is equal to, and then you could do Band-Aid method. So Band-Aid method is like this. So 1 over x minus x divided by x is 1. So this is also a correct answer. All right. Peace out.